Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we're going to be upgrading the Scrapyard Sacrifice starter deck on a budget. We will not be spending any rares. So if you want to upgrade these decks, you have to open your starter decks. You have to select the deck, and down here there is a clone option because you cannot edit these starter decks in the starter decks tab. But now we have a clone in the My Decks tab, and this we can change as we wish. So here's the thing. This is a sacrifice deck. And the obvious thing to do is just to turn this into a Rakdos Anvil deck. I've played it on the channel like 3 or 4 times. I'll link to all the videos, I guess, if you're interested. That's the obvious thing to do, but I think we should stick to this deck's themes. We have some cool payoffs like Gixian Infiltrator, which is pretty cool. We have Vran. We have the Mishra and Phyrexian Dragon Engine combo. Only one of each, so I don't know how often it's going to happen, but yeah, I think we should just stick to this deck's themes instead of just converting it to another Anvil deck. If you're interested in that, I have a 5 rare budget version of an Anvil deck, so you can just go check that out. But for this deck, we'll stick to mostly what this deck is doing and see what we can do. So first off, you want to click up here, or I guess if you're in, I haven't done this in the other videos, but if you're in this tab, you want to click over here. But you want to click here and switch this over to standard. Because in Alchemy, you're very unlikely to win with a starter deck. Because, well, it's just not going to be as powerful as other decks. So, we have a few cards we need to take out because they're illegal, but that's fine. First, we can take out these Sanitarium Skeletons for one of the best 1-drops for sacrifice decks, and that is Unlucky Witness. So this is a 1-mana 1/1. When it dies, you exile the top 2 cards of your library, and until your next end step, you can play one of those. So you get to dig 2 cards, pick one and play it. And that's pretty good. It does say play, not cast. So that means, if this loads, that you can play lands. That's good. And it's a great sacrifice outlet for stuff like Corrupted Conviction. If you play this, sacrifice Unlucky Witness, you draw 2, and then you get 2 more cards to pick from for a 3rd card, which is pretty good. And of course, that's also good with like this, right? You sacrifice this, get 2 cards, and then also draw the card from this card. So yeah, it's a pretty good sacrifice target. Next we have this card, which is a 4-mana 3/3 haste, makes duplicates of things, whatever. We're going to get another great sacrifice card, and that is Blood Tithe Harvester. This is played everywhere. It's played in Rakdos midrange. It's played in Explorer. It's a very powerful card. 2-mana 3/2, that's great. When it enters, it makes a blood token. This is great for sacrifice decks because we can sacrifice the blood token. Typically in Anvil decks, you sacrifice it to the Anvil, but even in this deck, we can sacrifice it and just get a counter here, because this just cares about whenever we sacrifice a permanent. So if we sacrifice the blood token, we get a counter here, but also the Harvester can sacrifice itself to give a creature -X/-X, where X is twice the number of blood tokens we control. So it's also just a built-in sacrifice card in addition to being a 2-mana 3/2. So yeah, it's just good all around. So we'll take out this Antiquarian thing and add one of those. So we have this Final Flourish card. So it's a 2-mana, give a creature -2/2, not great. And if we sacrifice something, we can give something -6/6. I mean, first off, I'd rather just play a straight up removal spell. I know this is a sacrifice deck, but we're not really getting any advantage for sacrificing something over just like a regular removal spell. But it's even worse when compared to Blood Tithe Harvester because, well, it also sacrifices itself to give something -X/-X, -2/2, even if we have no other blood tokens. But it's also like a 2-mana 3/2, and the blood token can filter, and there's just so much upside. So I want to take these 3 out for 3 more Blood Tithe Harvesters. Next, I wish when I clicked this tab it wasn't so laggy. Charforger. It's okay. It's a 3-mana 2/3. When it enters, it makes a 1/1, so it's kind of a 3-mana 3/4 sort of, I guess. But whenever another creature or artifact we control goes to the graveyard, we put an oil counter on it, and then if we get 3 oil counters, we can remove them to get 1 card off the top. It's okay, but there's just so many hoops to jump through, and I think one of our best payoffs for this strategy is Gixian Infiltrator, at least for this deck. Rakdos Anvil, Oni-Cult Anvil would be the best payoff in a regular Anvil deck, but I just think taking out one of these for another one of our like best payoffs seems pretty good. And I want to take out the other Charge Forger for a card that I think is massively underplayed. and that is Lagomos. Lagomos, Hand of Hatred. He's a 3-mana 1/3, so not a great body, but at the beginning of combat on our turn, we make a 2/1 red elemental with trample and haste, and then we sacrifice it. What's cool about that is if we have nothing else in play except for this, the sacrifice will trigger Gitaxian Infiltrator. Another cool thing is because it's giving us a free creature every turn, it gives us something to sacrifice to things like Corrupted Conviction and the Stormclaw Rager. And when it dies, it's going to trigger this, right? It's going to get a counter here. So it's just like a continuous source of creatures to sacrifice. It's very good. I like it a lot. It also has this search for library thing. If 5 or more creatures died, we're probably never going to do that. That's not the goal. The goal here is to have a 3-mana thing that gives us a token every turn. It's basically like Charforger. It's basically Charforger is what we're taking out. Urabrask's Forge does the same thing, where it makes a Phyrexian Horror token every turn, has Trample and Haste, and then we sacrifice at the end of turn, which triggers all of our things. It gives us something to sacrifice. It sacrifices itself for this, and all of that. So this is basically sort of like a budget version of this, but also it blocks. This doesn't. The Forge does not block. So yeah, it's decent. Next we have this Testament Bearer thing, and this is it's all right. It's not that great. It's a 4-mana 4/1, kind of whatever. When it dies, we look at the top 3 and we can put one of them into our hand. So the benefit here is we can sacrifice it and get another card, I guess, which is fine. Kind of clunky at 4 mana though, but I think this is just so much worse than Garna, because Garna is super cool in this deck. It's uncommon, so that's cool. A 4-mana 4/3 instead of a 4/1, notably. And then whenever a creature dies, we draw a card if it was attacking or deal 1 damage if it wasn't. So when we attack with things like this token and this token, for example, if it dies in combat, we draw a card. And if it doesn't die in combat, then we deal 1 damage. So it works pretty well. We're going to be getting more of Ligma in the deck, by the way. So yeah, we'll take these out and add 3 of these, which I'm a pretty big fan of. I also think we could take out these. So they're a little janky. The idea is we target a creature that we're going to sacrifice or that's going to die, and it comes back. But it's like kind of janky. It's kind of like we have to have the setup where we have something to sacrifice, a sacrifice outlet, and this to sort of get this like, aha, look what I did. Alternatively, we can just play Unlucky Witness and just get 2 cards, regardless of the circumstance. If we sacrifice this, if we have our sacrifice outlet and we have our sacrifice target, which is this, we just get 2 cards. But even if it just like chump blocks, we get 2 cards, right? It's always good. And this is like, every once in a while, the stars will align and this will do like a really cool thing. And we'll be like, yeah, look at this cool thing we did. But then like so many other times, we're just going to be looking at this card like, this does nothing in this situation. So just take one of these out for 1 more Unlucky Witness. It's just more consistent. And the other one, we want more of these guys. Look, he's really good. Trust me. The games when you get this guy out, you'll thank me. He's really cool. Super cool at Uncommon, by the way. The synergy with him and all your other stuff is just so good. I have one more change I want to make. So in one of the other decks, we get a really cool rare for this deck, which is Bloated Processor. It's a 3-mana 3/2. We can sacrifice another Phyrexian to put a counter on it, and then when it dies, it incubates based on its power. So the reason this is so cool is because first off, it gives us 2 sacrifice outlets. If we have, stuff like Corrupted Conviction, we can sacrifice this, draw 2, then just transform the incubator and have another 3/3. But it's also useful for like, say, Urabrask's Forge, which is it makes Phyrexian creatures every turn, which we can then sacrifice to this to get extra counters. Also, like if Vran were to die, for example, in response, we can sacrifice it to get an extra counter. The same is true for Phyrexian Dragon Engine and Mishra. Both of these are Phyrexian. We don't want to sacrifice these ever, but our opponent is also really going to want to kill Mishra, so if it's in play and we have Bloated Processor, we can just sacrifice it in response to a removal spell. Might as well get a counter out of it, and also our incubator token will be bigger. So I think we can take out one of these. It's okay, right? 3-mana 3/2. When it dies, opponent loses 2, we gain 2. It's kind of fine, but not as good as Bloated Processor, and this is free as it was in one of the other decks. One other change we can make is we can add Tramway Station. So this is a land, enters tapped, adds black and red. This Tramway Station also enters tapped, also adds black and red, but it can be sacrificed to draw a card, so that's just a free outlet if we're mana flooded. These lands are technically swamps and mountains, but not really relevant for us. And this can draw a card if we're flooded, so just add 4 of those, and that is much better. Something else that's worth noting, I debated for a long time whether we should add it, which is Eaten Alive. So this is 1 mana as an additional cost, sacrifice a creature or pay 4, exile a creature or planeswalker. This is debatable whether it's just as good as this, which is a 2 mana, but we can sacrifice an artifact or creature, and we don't have an option to pay 4 here. In the late game, we can just pay 5 for this if we want to. If we have 8 mana and we top deck it, it's like, all right, I'll just pay 5. Not an option here. We have to sacrifice. So most decks do play Eaten Alive, though the benefit here is we can sacrifice artifacts, so we can sacrifice blood tokens, for example. I would personally play Eaten Alive, but it's not a huge deal. So what are the rares that I want to be looking for in the future with this deck? There are a few. First off, more Vrans would be good. Vran is just a great payoff for sacrificing stuff, drains the opponent out. Braids is also cool. I've actually never played a deck with Braids. 3 mana, 3/3, we can sacrifice something and then force the opponent to also sacrifice something of that same type. And if they can't, they lose 2 and we draw. So that's a pretty cool addition. Jadar can also be nice. He's a 2 mana, 1/1. At the beginning of our end step, we make a 2/2. So that's very similar to this guy, very similar to Urabrask's Forge, where it just gives us a constant supply of sacrifice outlets or sacrifice targets. That's what it is, that's a target. So all of these are pretty good. Also, Omnixilus is also pretty good in sacrifice decks, the Planeswalker. So he has casualties, so he can sacrifice something when we play it, which we like doing. His -2 makes devil tokens, which are great for sacrificing because they deal damage when they die. His plus will make each opponent lose 2 life unless they discard, which is great. And we'll gain 2, so the drain is cool, especially when combined with a Vran. I know if we can ever -7, that's cool, but the casualty and the devil tokens is the main draw here. So all of these are great. The weakest cards in the deck are probably Etched Familiar, Sangir Connoisseur. This card's okay, but I don't know if it's as good. I think I'd rather have Braids. This is a cool sacrifice outlet, but I'd rather have Jadar just for the constant stream of sacrifice outlets, right? This is a payoff for sacrificing. Is it as good as Vran? It's okay. But yeah, all of these are our weakest cards, I would say, and these are the cards that I would be looking to add potentially in this build, or just go look up the Oni-Cult Anvil builds of the deck. But yeah, anyway, that's our deck. I think it is much more consistent. It feels pretty great. So I will leave a link to this exact deck list down below. If you're interested, you can just copy it into the client and craft the commons and uncommons if you want. I'll also leave links in the description to all the videos, all the versions of this deck that I've played. I played Oni-Cult Anvil. I played the Omnixilus combo version of the deck. I played the Vran Phyrexianized version of the deck, as I called it. So yeah, there's multiple versions of the Oni-Cult Anvil deck, and I've played it quite a bit. It's one of my favorite decks in Standard. But anyway, I hope this was useful. This deck should be much more powerful. Let me know how it feels if you try it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.